The Why Golf podcast is brought to you by Skyscanner, the ultimate travel hack that searches billions of prices on flights, hotels and cars, so you can feel confident you'll always find an amazing deal.
Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new series of Why Golf podcast, brought to you by Skyscanner. Now, if you're wondering where Di Stewart is, fear not, she will be back hosting throughout this season. But she has designated me as guest host for this very special episode, brought to you from here in the Netherlands. And not just anywhere in the Netherlands, but the 2026 Solheim Cup host golf course, Bernardus. It is absolutely stunning, and we've had a fabulous day out meeting so many people who are going to be instrumental in bringing that Solheim Cup to life, as well as some Solheim Cup legends, including Anne van Dam and Catriona Matthew. Here's a little flavour of what I've been up to.
We haven't had an event of this size even close, right? So, we've had our Dutch Open and the men's Dutch Open, and this event is going to be such a groundbreaking event. The Junior Solheim Cup and the Solheim Cup are going to be played at the same venue.
We had laughed over the years about when you suddenly see your captains and things coming rushing towards you at the end. You're quite important at the moment. So I jumped out and I walked with her from 17 tee to 18 green. And she just kind of looked at me. I said, Stan, this is why I picked you.
This has endless opportunities. 52, 7-iron, and driver.
Before we got involved, while we're involved, and as we look forward, that this moment and this opportunity is only going to get better as we continue to go. So it feels like it's a cheat code a little bit to get in early because you know where it's heading.
Golf's probably unique in that sense that it's the only sport that people of different abilities can play together.
I have moved up here to the terrace in Bernardus, where I've come across two wonderful things. First of all, this view. Second of all, Catriona Matthew.
Yeah, which one better than you or me, Henni?
No, I couldn't possibly choose. It's like choosing a favourite child. They're both wonderful. You, of course. Beanie, thank you for joining us. We are here to talk all things Solheim Cup at this super impressive venue that I've sort of decided I don't want to leave because it is so stunning. Let's just touch on the venue first. It's such a unique golf course and clubhouse, and from a fan experience point of view, what do you predict it's going to be like?
I I first came here 3 years ago to have a look at the venue. It was just like you, blown away by it. It wasn't quite such a nice day, but just the clubhouse. It's just not what you expect from a golf clubhouse. Quite kind of futuristic, modern, and food is just superb. And then you get onto the golf course and things just get better and better. Been fortunate enough to play it a couple of times, and I think come September when the Solheim Cup's on, the course will be out, Heather will be out. It's just, I think, stunning, and some great risk-reward holes, I think, especially coming down the last few holes with, a little bit of water and different things. And I think that the fans are just going to have a fantastic time here, heddling their way here to watch it.
Yes, indeed. There are some incredible sustainability efforts that are going to be on display at the 2026 Solheim Cup. Buses and bikes are the only way to get to the venue. Let's delve into Solheim Cup and your history with it, because if you're not familiar, this is a woman who has played 9 Solheim Cups, was the first ever Solheim Cup captain to go back-to-back in America as well. We're going to rewind all the way back to your first ever Solheim Cup that you got selected for in 1998. What did that mean to you, that moment, to be selected?
I think to be selected back then in '98, that seems like a long time ago now, but the Solheim Cup was a big event, but nowhere near what it is nowadays. But still, it was a huge honour. I turned pro 4 years before that, in '94, and to get in, I felt so quickly. It was just a huge achievement for me. Playing at Muirfield Village, Jack's place, so we got to meet Jack and Barbara Nicholas, which was a thrill for us. And then to go out, to be fair, I was probably, as a player, slightly overawed by it all. If I'm looking back and being honest, I was probably it was all just a little bit too much for me. And then I went out and was paired with Annika, which was nice. We'd grown up playing, amateur golf together, so nice to, and obviously playing with Annika, which wasn't quite world number one then, but near enough. A great partner to have. But we were soundly beaten that year by the Americans, but it just whetted my appetite for the Solheim Cup. I'd always loved playing in the team events as an amateur, you know, playing for the Scottish team and then moving on and playing for in the Curtis Cup and the Vagliano for the GP9 teams. So to get that chance to play in a team and be in a team environment as a golfer is just such a thrill, because golf, as you know, is just such an individual sport usually. So I think that's what just, you know, even though it was all probably a little bit too much for me, you know, did I enjoy it? I don't know. I think I was probably too nervous to enjoy the first one, but you know, it definitely made me want to get in it again.
It's obviously difficult not to compare it to the Ryder Cup. At that time, do you remember growing up, and obviously the Solheim family was instrumental in creating the Solheim Cup, given the name, that's an obvious thing to say, but it was in the late 1980s. And then there was this opportunity to be able to do, I guess, exactly what the men were doing in terms of Europe versus USA, and have this event on this global scale. Do you recall the, you know, the birth of that, and then being like, oh, I get to actually compete in this, and that development and timeline?
Yes, I do really. I mean, it was, you know, as you say, the late 80s, early 90s. I think 1990 was perhaps the first one, and then in 94 was it at Dalmahoy in Scotland. So I remember going there to watch that one.
Yeah. How old were you? Sorry, I'm aging you.
Gosh, I don't know, just probably early 20s, just before I turned pro. But, and but I mean, the Europeans were huge underdogs in that. The Americans had a kind of all-star team with Hall of Famers, you know, Nancy Lopez, Patty Sheehan, Pat Bradley, all their top names were playing in it. And, you know, they had won, or it must have been 92, they had won easily, you know, the year before in 90 at Lake Nona. So I remember going there and watching, and it was, of course, wet weather, that probably helped. We're in Scotland, but yeah, I think that just kind of, because at that time you didn't really get to see really any women's professional golf on television. So when I was growing up, it was always just the men's game you were watching. You know, you'd watch the Masters, you'd watch the Open on TV. So I kind of probably grew up watching, you know, your Sandy Lyles, Nick Faldos, Ian Wooslow, that kind of era of players. So to actually get the chance to go and see these top women playing. But just 92, I was probably just thinking about, will I turn pro? Will I get there to go? I think that probably just pushed me over the edge.
Did it?
Probably gave my dad a heart attack.
So you were inspired by that moment. When you talk about it now and you look back on it, and we'll delve into what the Solheim Cup has become now, but just with your personal experience of Solheim Cups, what do you feel when you look back over the years and think back to that moment that it's like?
Yeah, I mean, I look back, I mean, obviously you go and watch it and you have that kind of little dream in the back of your head, but do you really think it's going to happen? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it certainly gives you something to drive towards. And then, as you said, you know, I had the chance to play in 98 and then missed a couple, and then, you know, played the next 8 in a row. So, yeah, I mean, once you play in one, you want to play in another, and then the more you play, and I think the more you enjoy them, you kind of know what to expect. It's like anything that, you know, the first couple of times you go and do something, it just all seems a little bit maybe too much or different. But once you get settled into it, it's just the best fun. That, you know, once one's over, you just want to try and make it into the next one.
And now the Solheim Cup has evolved from that, Europe being the underdogs, these, you know, huge American players coming over, to one of the leading sporting events in the world, male or female, and, you know, inspiring legions of young girls and boys worldwide. How, I mean, when you look at it now and you're at events, or maybe the ones even that you were captaining, is there a bit of a surreal moment where you're like, wow, look at what this has become now?
Yeah, I think for me, the one that really felt so it was the changing in it, you could just see the event getting bigger, was Barsabak. Not great in my days, can't quite remember what year that was, but
2018?
Oh no, it was further back. Must have been the early 2000s.
No, 2008.
I don't know, we need to Google that one.
Fact check.
We should Google that one. But
I
would say
I played the junior Solheim Cup of that year.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay. Well, maybe that, and the Europeans won that one. We had a record win. We had Annika team, Suzanne Pettersson, myself, Laura. We had a great team. We went out there, and that was one I really remember. The crowds. You just go out there, and the crowds were just lined down the fairways. Remember in the singles, I was playing just in front of Annika. It was going to come down to one of our 2 matches, and the fairways were just lined. But we'd all just finished, and then everyone kind of ran back, and the Swedish crowds were out in force, and that was probably the one. you could just see it, just beginning to get that popularity. But now, as you say, I think it's grown even bigger, and it's now really not just even golf fans, I don't think, that come and watch. I think it's just an event that people want to come and watch. They want to be part of it. They've perhaps watched the Ryder Cup over the years. They're now beginning to realise the Solheim Cup, is just as exciting. I mean, match play golf at its best, it can be the most exciting format. I think we were fortunate, obviously, Gleneagles and Inverness, 19 and 21 were both really close finishes, which just, I think during kind of COVID, the 21 one, there were people were probably watching on television and just really got into it.
You obviously made that seamless transition from player to captain. I'm going to put you on the spot here a little bit. You don't have to name any names, I'm not thinking of anyone in particular, but I guess in a theoretical way, do you think anyone who's played can captain?
Oh, Henni, that's a tricky one. Well, anyone who's played could captain. Some would
successfully.
Be others. Why don't we leave it at that?
But in terms of those, I guess, traits or learnings that you had from the 9 Solheim Cups that you played in, what ones of those then did you tease out to be able to utilise in your captaincy? Because I'm assuming that there are some things that you got from it, obviously, that you could say, yes, I'd like to use that, but then there's other leadership qualities that you would need to add into that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely you get, from playing in the 9, you discover things that you liked and how, when I was feeling comfortable, like the first couple perhaps I played in, I maybe could have felt more comfortable.
Yeah.
So I would try and take special care of the rookies, just to get them, introducing them to other people, and because even though you're playing on tour with these players, you perhaps don't know them particularly well. So just little things like that I learned, and just telling players when they were perhaps playing, trying to be communication, really trying to be a bit more upfront with the players. So the things I didn't like, I tried to change, and the things I liked from captains, I probably played under maybe 7 different captains, and so all of them did something you liked, and probably most of them did something you didn't like. So I tried to take little bits from each of them, and then just kind of mold that into kind of how I would captain it. And probably future captains who were played under me will take little things from me that liked, but the other things I did that they didn't like. So I don't think there's any one way to captain. I think you've got to do it. You can't change who you are as a captain or your personality. So I think you probably maybe got to adapt it. You've got to get good vice captains who perhaps have different qualities than what you have.
If you were giving your daughters advice and you had to pick one
for them not to listen,
of course, because they're your daughters. Standard. We'll make it a theoretical world in which the children listen to their parents. And you had to take one piece of secret sauce from your captaincies. They're leading their own team in a respective sport or business. What one thing would you say, girls, make sure you do this, or this is going to be key to your success in leadership?
And I know it sounds so obvious, but it's got to be communication, because so many teams I've been in where if players don't know what's happening, then they start talking behind the scenes, and then there's bickering, and so I think you've really got to try and be as upfront as you can, try and so everyone knows what's happening, what they're meant to be doing, where they're meant to be, and what you want them to try and do, whether they don't perhaps always like what you tell them. Yeah, but I think you've got to be upfront, and you've got to tell.
Is there anything to this point that sort of matched or has been comparable to the adrenaline that you may have felt and the pressure that you may have felt during those 2 weeks of captaincy?
I don't think so. I think apart from being a player, playing it, I mean, I think definitely
is that cool?
Playing it, I think, is way more nerve-wracking than captaining.
Really?
Captaining, I kind of loved it. I mean, you could go and then you could actually walk onto the first tee, you could enjoy it. If you're going on here as a player, you're terrified, think, God, I have to hit this shot. But you could go on as a captain, you could look around, you could see who was all there. And once you've put the pairings out, that's it. There's not really a whole lot more you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, I think obviously it comes with perhaps different streams and different pressures, but I think not the same as when you're an individual and you're a player. So no, I think the captaincy was definitely a little bit more relaxed.
I'm going to take you back to a moment in time that was perhaps not very relaxing as a captain, which was 2019, Glen Eagles, Suzanne Pettersson on 18 with a 7-footer to get that Solheim Cup, and that was your first time as a captain. Take us back to that day, and we all know how it unfolded in terms of, okay, spoiler alert, she holed it. But it was one of the all-time great sporting moments, and as a viewer, obviously all eyes were on that moment and Suzanne and that green. But it's going to be really interesting to hear from your point of view how that day unfolded for you and how that moment unfolded for you.
Yeah, it was a kind of a funny day because the night before, I had spoken to the team and said, normally you go out in the singles and there's suddenly 12 singles, so the crowd are a bit more dispersed. So I said, oh, don't worry, you go out in the singles, be a lot quieter. And then we get to that first tee and it's just lined and every fairway's lined. So they probably thought, what on earth is she talking about? But anyway, then we get out to playing and it just kind of looked, I would say, all day as if the best we were going to do was a half. I was on the radio, Catherine and Laura, the vice captains, and Mel, we were all just kind of, we just couldn't quite see where that extra kind of half point was coming from. And, we'd seem to go up 18, we had Charlie came up 18, just kind of didn't quite get it done. I think Anne Van Dam the same, didn't quite do it. We just seemed to be losing kind of that little half point here and there on that last hole, which of course I had told them not to get to because they had such a terrible green. But, and then, Anna was back there playing number 11, I think she was, and she was well up. We kind of had her game, that was a solid coin. And then Bronte suddenly, kind of turned it round against Ali McDonald, Ali Ewing. And suddenly then you're just kind of thinking, I remember going down in the cart to 73 to see Suzanne. In fact, she had just finished 17 and she was walking to 18. And I think Catherine was driving and she said to me, I think we're going to do it. And I said, oh, I don't know. She was certainly more confident than me. But anyway, we get down and Suzanne's walking to the 18th tee. And we had laughed over the years about when you suddenly see your captains and things coming rushing towards you at the end. Your point's important at the moment. So I jumped out and I walked with her from 17 tee to 18 green. And she just kind of looked at me. I said, Suzanne, this is why I picked you. And then obviously she did what she did on 18, holding that. I mean, because we were all sitting behind the green on 18 and we could hear through the radio that Bronte, just as Suzanne was lining up her putt, had won her match.
Yeah.
So we knew that this putt was to win. Yeah. To win. And so we were sitting.
Did Suzanne know?
She claims she did.
Okay.
But there was a huge cheer. But she still claims, and then the reaction she had. I don't know. She claims she didn't know. But so then when she held that, because to be captain and to be in Scotland, the sun had suddenly come out. It just couldn't have been a better finish to it. And I think probably the relief and the excitement when that putt went in was just quite unbelievable.
Do you think about that moment often, or that week?
Yeah, I do actually. I've been up to Glen Eagles, quite a few times after it, and they've got a nice kind of statue there now at the first tee on the centenary course, and every time you kind of want to go down there or go around the golf course, walk the dog around the course, and whatever, you kind of think of, oh, so did that.
Yeah, reliving those moments.
Yeah.
We spoke about the trajectory already of the Solheim Cup back from 1990 to Bastek to where it is now. What do you feel like the Solheim Cup has to keep doing in order to keep evolving? Or do differently, perhaps?
I don't know if there's a whole lot they need to do differently. I think it's which is a very difficult thing to do, but if the matches can stay close, that's what people want to watch. They want, obviously, both the Europeans, the Americans want to win comfortably and have it the nice, easy ride on the Sunday. But as spectators, you want it to be close. I think that's what's brought so many people into it, that the last probably 4 or 5 have been close.
Yeah.
I think since Des Moines, they've been all quite close and could have gone either way on the Sunday. And I think that's what people love watching, and just seeing that emotion coming out of the players, that you don't perhaps normally see in regular events. And I think we've potentially maybe benefited a fraction from the Ryder Cup being a little lopsided, either home or away. The home sides always seems to have won. So, and then yet we've had some fascinating battles over the last few.
In terms of women's sport, obviously we're in this incredible era at the moment where it's at the forefront of people's minds and visions and is growing exponentially, and women's golf is alongside that. And we're always talking about how do we grow the game, and inevitably a huge part of that is brand partnerships and sponsorships. I guess, the podcast is called Why Golf, but my question to you is why golf partnerships, why brand partnerships, why is that crucial if someone was listening and going, okay, I've heard a lot about women's sport, I've been thinking about investing, but I'm not sure.
I think golf, because everyone can play it. I mean, you could play it from the age of 5 to 90, really, or any age, really. Anyone can play golf. And I think you can play different abilities. I was playing the other day with a friend who probably plays off about 25, but we went out and had a great game. We just wandered around and chatted away. So golf's probably unique in that sense that it's the only sport that people of different abilities can play together. So I think that's the beauty, and I think women's participation in golf is booming at the moment.
Yes.
I think that's the stats show that's the biggest gainer in golf is women getting into golf. I think it's just that kind of sport that you can take up. Perhaps people who haven't taken it up as a child can take it up home when they're a wee bit older and know that they can keep playing it. If you take up another sport, perhaps you just can't keep doing it till you're late and older. And so I think that's the beauty of it, the fact everyone can play it. You play it year round. It's not, I know people say it's an expensive sport, but in Britain it really isn't compared to the rest of the world. So yeah, I think that really is what gets me into golf.
And then in terms of the Solheim Cup and the product that has become now, in terms of attracting brand partnerships and sponsorships, I guess how do you see that from your viewpoint of having played 9 and captain 2, in terms of what value that can give a company in terms of the product it is now?
I think the product it is now is, the standard of play is just exceptional. The level of competition, you can see the passion, even the passion of the players, the passion of the spectators watching it, just the whole experience of coming to the Solheim Cup or being associated with the Solheim Cup, and just the number of the viewing figures. It's probably one of the most watched women's sports events in the world now. It has become one of these events that transcends its own sport. It was watched by many other people. So I think you get it out into a huge market.
I'm sure you'd agree with this, but just my experience of having attended and worked on many different Ryder Cups and Solheim Cups, Solheim Cup feels like a little bit more of an intimate environment and experience that you get more involved in. I mean, you still have all of that incredible, as you said, first tee nerves as a player, but first tee enjoyment and environment and atmosphere, but just in a more intimate way.
Yeah, you can probably get closer. I mean, a Ryder Cup is just huge.
Yeah.
It's tough to see anything. You probably just have to sit at one spot and watch it. I mean, I suppose in a way you're asking, that's perhaps what the Solheim Cup's got to. You can be a victim sometimes of your own success.
Yeah.
That's what people have loved about coming to the Solheim Cup, that they can get to see a little bit more of the golf. It's not overrun by thousands and thousands of spectators, even though there are big crowds. But so I suppose that's something that perhaps got to be just a little bit careful of.
Well, this one is certainly going to be an incredible one that I am very excited about. I, in fact, don't think I want to leave here because they have these views, Michelin star restaurant, a winery, this incredible modern architecture. I think they've got some apartments or like holiday cottages somewhere that I might just ferret
We
myself
could stay here till next year.
Should we get the dog sport out? Perfect. Catriona, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Henni.
The Why Golf podcast is brought to you by Skyscanner, the ultimate travel hack that searches billions of prices on flights, hotels and cars, so you can feel confident you'll always find an amazing deal.
Okay, time for my Clubhouse Curveballs. The first one is that I have to do a round of golf with 3 clubs. So what 3 clubs am I picking? Driver, because it's fun. Pitching wedge, because I feel like I can try and figure out. Oh no! I was gonna go driver putter, but then maybe 7-iron. Okay, no. Driver, wedge, 52-degree wedge, because I can putt with that as well. I can belly it, and then 6-iron or 7-iron. I could putt with either of them. This has endless opportunities. 52, 7-iron, and driver. My dream 4-ball would be... This is really sad, but I would probably pick my parents and my daughter because I'm a real family person and I love spending time with them. If I could travel anywhere in the world to go and play golf, number one on my bucket list is Old Head of Kinsale in Ireland, and I feel like there. Or if I had to pick another one, because I can't just pick one thing, it would be somewhere in like the Scottish Highlands. I just love the dramatic scenery. Give me a mountain, give me some dramatic cliff tops, and I'm a happy girl. Okay, so to finish up the day, we're going to pop inside and have a panel with three very impressive people. Dre Masurier, who's Global Head of Brand for Skyscanner, Catriona Matthew, of course, we all know her, and Anne van Dam, who is the newly minted Ping Junior Solheim Cup captain for Team Europe. Very excited to go catch up with them. As a female golfer, female athlete, you are doing the exact same amount of work that a man is doing. And we know the disparity in pay, unfortunately, and exposure and opportunities. What does it mean to you when companies like Skyscanner, Rolex, Ping are backing women's golf and backing the Solheim Cup?
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, for me, I never started this sport thinking I was going to make money. Like, I never saw it that way. But as you get on tour and you have your expenses, you work with the same coaches the men do, you travel the same way, it adds up, right? So if you then see, for the same finish, you make a certain amount and men make a different amount, that is definitely tough to see sometimes, but you can always improve, and I think there's ways to go. And over the last, I would say 5 years in the women's game, we've had so many amazing partners that step up, and yeah, for us girls, we're very thankful. And I see, the women's game hopefully at some point grow past the men's game. Like he was saying as well, just women are so approachable. And we actually really enjoy things like this, and it doesn't cost any energy. And I think it's our job to also look out for the next generation. That I want them to make 10 times the amount that the men obviously make. And you see it happening in sports, right? You have tennis, you have other sports. It's coming, but it takes some time. But we need leading partners, and we have seen it with our majors. It's as close to some of the big events on the PGA Tour, and that's groundbreaking to play in those events. And you walk away and you have a great week and you make a huge paycheck, and that's something that's very cool to see happen throughout my career. And I only hope, with all these amazing partners, that it continues to happen over the years to come.
And in terms of aligning with values, the women's golf landscape and the value of that here in the Netherlands is huge, comparatively speaking, to other European countries, especially the UK. How special is it to be a golfer from the Netherlands and to be able to host a Solheim Cup for the first time? Yeah,
it's going to be absolutely groundbreaking. I remember, being a young girl in the Netherlands, and no one saw me as, a golfer. Wasn't a sport, right? And it was difficult to grow up in schools where people play soccer and field hockey, and it was definitely, you had to stand by yourself, and this is the sport I like to do. So to go through, and it was definitely not easy. But I think now, like over the years, it's grown so much that a lot of these people that used to make fun of me, right? They're now asking like, hey, do you want to play a round of golf? And I'm like, sure. But it really has changed. The image of golf has been changing over the last couple of years. I feel that too. A lot of my friends, right, that are now between 20 and 30 years old, they're playing golf, which I think is very, very cool to see. I think we have ways to go. But that's cool. Hopefully I can have my voice and my image help the next generation, and to make golf a really cool sport. That's something I stand for. It can bring you so many great things in life. It's probably the hardest mental game in the world, but I think it's such a good challenge, and I still enjoy that every day myself. And yeah, I just hope that an event like this, especially the juniors playing on the same course as the real Solheim Cup, it would bring so many different fans out. And I really hope we can all promote it in a way that families come with their kids and they see these players play. Like, that's how I got inspired, right? I was watching the Dutch Open at Eindhoven when I was 10 years old, asking all the players for golf balls and hats, and I was just there all day to then go on and like play myself. And now this morning I played with two girls of the national team a practice round at the Gooier where we played the Dutch Open this week. And just to see their excitement, to me it's just like yesterday. So that's something that really inspires me to really make it a cool sport and have a lot of kids hopefully play in the future.
Yeah, that's a full circle moment. And one that makes me feel very old because I played in that Dutch Open in Eindhoven. So we'll just move on.
It's not that long ago. Sorry.
Thank you.
I had the years mixed up.
What do you think the atmosphere is going to be like out here? Because there's two things from an outside perspective that makes golf in the Netherlands really special and unique. One is the female participation numbers, and the second is the passion here for sustainability and the fact that everyone's going to be coming on bikes and on buses, and I think that's going to be quite special and unique as well, and something that we're all looking forward to seeing. So given those two things, what do you feel like the atmosphere is going to be like out there?
I think it's going to be great. I know Dutch people, they like to party, they like to drink Heineken, so I think it will be, I hope it's going to be a massive party. I mean, that's the beauty of the Solheim Cup. Like, I've never hit a shot until playing in the Solheim Cup with all the fans going crazy. Like, I was standing on the tee, I'm like, why not? Like, this is my opportunity to actually have this experience. And I think it's nice. You have two sides. People either cheer for Europe or for the US, and that's something you play only once every 2 years. So playing on Heimsol, obviously we have most of the European fans here, which is great. That's the only experience I have. So I never had the crowd against me, so I can only imagine how hard that is. But I think it's just going to be a fantastic event, and I hope people are loud. People want to support women's golf. It's they have to see it like a party. If you go to the NBA and watch sports, there's music blasting between every point, and people are standing and people are dancing. I think that's the beauty of sport. That's what golf has to go through a little bit more. Actually, that's the part I mainly don't like about it, is people are quiet and you stand and people go like, shh, you can't talk, and I'm like, come on, like if you hit a good shot, people should go crazy, and that's what I love about the Solheim Cup. There's not really any rules, so I hope it's going to be, people are going to come out and people are going to love that environment, because I surely did, and I bet Catriona liked it as well.
We've just finished a panel Q&A here in the clubhouse at Bernardus with the newly minted Ping Junior Solheim Cup captain for Team Europe, Anne van Damme. And how excited are you to have that title? Hearing me say it, does it sound good?
I know, it's starting to get more real and real for sure. It was a big secret for the past couple months, and now that it's here, it's just fantastic. And I've had so many good reactions today already from so many of my friends on tour, so it's going to be very exciting.
Today it was announced. Earlier on this morning, you've had some feedback on social media, now you've had feedback from the room. Has that increased your excitement levels? And what are you most looking forward to now at the end of the day of the announcement?
For sure. I mean, September next year definitely cannot come soon enough. So that's very exciting. Right now it's nice to go home and kind of wind down. Obviously, we're in the Netherlands. It's my home country. So having a nice dinner with my parents and just sitting, having some tea or coffee, and just letting it all soak in and have this experience with them is very, very nice.
You gave some fantastic answers on the panel about what kind of captain you want to be, what legacy you want to leave behind, and so it feels wrong of me to keep that only in this room. I feel like it should be shared. Just answer that question again for us and for the listeners and viewers of what legacy you want to leave behind and what kind of a captain you want to be.
Yeah, I think most important is just to be yourself, right? I'm very, very open. I love helping other people. I love it when it's actually not about me, making other people feel comfortable. Golf is a very individual, lonely, stressful sport. So in an event like this where people are coming together, I remember vividly from 2013 when I played myself, some of these girls you normally always play against. You play against Germany, against Spain, where now you all come together and you form Team Europe. And I've made friends with some of these girls that I still travel with today on tour. And this week I'm playing with Bronte Law, one of my best friends, and I was literally rooming with her in the 2013 Junior Solheim Cup. So that's what I want to do as a captain, is make these girls feel very comfortable and really have them make friendships for life. I want to be open to them, that they can ask any questions. Most of these girls, they're going to want to turn pro, right? So helping them understand what that would take, believe in themselves, and most and foremost, I want them to look back on a week where they just had a blast, and they look back on something so fun, and only a lot more inspiration for the future for themselves.
There was a point where of the 12-woman Solheim Cup side, 11 of those players had previously participated in the Ping Junior Solheim Cup, much like yourself. What do you feel like as a current player you can bring that's unique to this captaincy? Because it is quite a unique position that you are a current player. You're still trying to make it into the actual Solheim Cup side and have it be a double-double, as you put it. What do you feel like that will bring to the team room?
Just that we're all a lot closer to each other, right? I'm basically like them. I'm playing full time, and I still have my own goals. I still work hard every day, and they do the same. So, we're maybe 10, 12 years difference in age, but I think in this game that's actually very close, which I think it's very cool. And for them to be hopefully open to me and really ask me questions. Hey, how do you prepare in a practice round? How do you work on your yardages? How do you do this and that? Like I know like at that age you can help someone so well. And sometimes me just telling them, look, you're a fantastic player. You're going to make it. Keep doing what you're doing and you're going to be great. Maybe that's what it's going to take to some of these girls. So I think that's what I'm most excited about.
And finally, how special is it going to be for the Netherlands to host its first ever Solheim Cup?
Yeah, it's groundbreaking. I mean, we haven't had an event of this size, even close, right? So, we've had our Dutch Open and the men's Dutch Open, and this event is going to be such a groundbreaking event. The Junior Solheim Cup and the Solheim Cup are going to be played at the same venue, where the juniors will play Monday and Tuesday, where the real Solheim Cup will be playing their practice rounds later that day on Tuesday. So, for them, everything is going to come together, and I think that will bring such a unique vibe to it, where families will come with their kids, and I just wish for as many people as possible to come and enjoy the show, because it will be a show, right? It will be music, it will be a party. It's nothing like any other golf event you would ever been to. So hopefully a lot of young boys and girls will come and watch, and it will inspire them to pick up the game or take that next step in their career and enjoy the game and maybe want to go on tour. And I think that's what our country needs. We need new superstars that need to take over my job in the future, and that's what I'm rooting for. So if we can do that week, that would be fantastic.
My first words to you when I saw you were congratulations, and then I wish that you could have been my captain. So can we just please work on forgery of my passport or something to try and make it happen?
We'll work on it.
Amazing.
For sure.
And thank you, and very best of luck.
Thank you so much.
I have collared another panel member, Dre from Skyscanner. Dre, thank you for joining us here on the Why Golf podcast.
My absolute pleasure.
Presented by Skyscanner, of course.
Well done.
Thank you.
Props.
We were talking about Skyscanner's unique entry into the women's sport market, because it was the first time sponsoring and being involved in as a brand partner into sport at all. And the fact that you chose women's sport is a unique move, unfortunately, but you were trailblazing in that area and in that regard. Just explain what the thought process was behind that and why that was important for you to do.
From a business perspective, it makes absolute sense. If you look at the numbers and you spend time actually looking at the data and the trajectory of women's sport, the value for dollar that you get in terms of impressions, reach, everything across the board just makes absolute sense. Then there's a value-based perspective as well from the brand around diversity, inclusion, authenticity, access, leveling up, creating a playing field that works for everyone, teamwork, companionship, camaraderie. There's so much of it that just works with the brand's DNA that Skyscanner stands for. So it just made sense on so many different platitudes. So it was an easy decision for us, and I think it's already paying dividends, but will continue to as this trajectory of women's sports continues to go up.
That first time round, as I mentioned, that entry into market was in 2024. You enjoyed it so much clearly that you've come back again for 2026. What was it that stood out to you back then, whether it was to do with the event or the return on investment or the values aligning? What was it for you that really hooked you and made you want to come back for more?
I talked about this in the panel. I think working with women's sport and women, as I talked about before, I worked in advertising for a long time and worked with Nike, some of the biggest men's athletes, Kobe Bryant, etc. And there's a lot of clock watching that goes on. Whereas when you're working with Suzanne or Stacy and the players in women's sport and with the Solheim Cup, they're genuinely interested in being there and giving, because they're thinking not just about themselves in the moment, thinking about the bigger picture, especially, players like Suzanne and Stacy, about growing the women's game and women's sport. So that access, that passion really translates well for brands, and being part of that energy, then being part of being there on the ground on the first tee when it all kicks off, and just feeling the energy from the crowd, seeing the reaction across social, and just the culmination of everything into Sunday where US roars ahead, Europe comes back. It's this sense of not just being out there on your own, but being there shoulder to shoulder with your companions, whether Europe or the USA. And then you've got Charlie versus Nelly on Sunday. These things cut through the cultural zeitgeist, and that's where brands want to be at the epicenter of those types of conversations in those moments, and not just be a logo on a billboard, but really lean into those moments with creators and influencers and storytelling. And that's the part that I get really excited about, and we get excited about as a brand and as a business. So we want to double down on that and really leverage that as much as we possibly can.
One of your missions is to grow women's sport, to grow the game, to grow women's golf. And obviously that doesn't happen without brand partnerships. So what would you say as an elevator pitch to other potential brand partners that want to come on board but are maybe a little bit hesitant as to why they should?
There's a palpable excitement, a palpable opportunity, and it feels in so many ways, before we got involved, while we're involved, and as we look forward, that this moment and this opportunity is only going to get better as we continue to go. So it feels like it's a cheat code a little bit to get in early, because where it's heading, and the numbers, as I said when I started, they don't lie. So I think for the brands that can seize the opportunity to be the ones that are going to really get outsized value like we have been.
Well, we're very grateful to have you on board, both for the Solheim Cup and the Why Golf podcast. Ray, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'm going to do Di proud here. If she were here next to me, she would be asking me, why golf, Henni? And so I'm going to give you my why golf. It's going to be a two-pronged answer. For me personally, and then for why I would want my daughter to play golf. So for me personally, it feels like home. I grew up on a golf course. I have spent countless hours with a golf club in my hand and countless hours on my own. And so for me, golf is like my home, my grounding, my mental space and clarity. Anytime I'm going through something good or bad or anything in between, I just go out on the golf course and I feel completely at peace. My favourite playing partners are my two dogs, Finn and Jake. And my favourite time to play is in the early evening when the sun's just starting to set, and it just is the most peaceful, feels like a deep breath, me being out on the golf course at that time with them. So that's my why. And then for reasons that I'd want to get my daughter involved, and why golf for her, I feel like golf mirrors life. I used to think of it as like a storybook when I used to play, with a start, a middle and an end. And each day and each time you're out on the golf course, it would be a different storybook that you were the author of, you would be in charge of. And within that story, there's lots of different trials and tribulations to overcome. So it's the ultimate thing that builds resilience, builds mental strength. You get to celebrate your victories, which you should do in life. And so I just think if you can teach yourself all of these incredible life skills through golf, it's going to set you up for a great life. If you play it every now and then, once a month, if you play it professionally, if you just work in the sport, there's so many different avenues that I feel like golf can set you up for life. So those are my why golfs. Having spent all day at this venue, I know it's going to be an absolute thriller of a Solheim Cup in 2026. Unfortunately, this is where I have to leave you, but please make sure you subscribe on your favourite podcast provider. Plus, we're on Instagram and YouTube too, and for information on everything and why it's so brilliant, head to thisiswhygolf.com. The Why Golf podcast is brought to you by Skyscanner. See you soon.